Good evening. It is time for today's Tax Talk. I'm your host. I'm attorney Stephen Leahy. And now that the bank statement fiasco is over, we're going to move to something else that they've been talking about for many months, and that's funding. Won't you join us? Won't you join us? Okay, so they are talking about funding. Now, it is the Monday, the first day of November, year of our Lord 2021. And again, now that the bank statement reporting is pretty much dead, we predicted that on Thursday. But although I got to tell you, a lot of the stories today still involve that. Not that we're going to talk about, but many of the stories that I see come across my desk had to do with the fund, still has to do with the bank reporting. I don't believe they've given up on it. I think you have to be very diligent that it may appear somewhere else. I believe that the administration and the IRS want that very badly. It's a way for them to get more money without saying that they raise taxes, even though where would the money come from but through more taxes? I mean, So again, we got to be very diligent in that and make sure that stays dead. I think I was correct in assuming that once people heard of this, that there would be many objections to it, and of course there was, and so that's good. And we reported on Thursday that 20 some Democratic Congress people were against it. We're not going to vote for it. That should be enough. Although the Democratic Party has a way of getting their members to do what they want them to do. And so I would still suspect that it's still out there, and it could happen. But now they're turning their focus to funding the IRS. This was always part of the package. We reported on this show. We had people all the way from Elizabeth Warren who wanted to quadruple 4 times the size of the IRS. Then there was doubling it and anywhere in between. I think they've settled on what they call $80 billion in additional funding. $80 billion would be about 70% increase in the IRS budget. So let's review that. See where we are on that. Okay. So Biden's plan to crack down on tax cheats with stronger IRS relies on deterrence. Biden plans to generate $400 billion from stricter tax enforcement. Now, the good news is they say it's only going to be the wealthy. The bad news is it's probably not only going to be the wealthy. I think I reported on this that it was some months ago that it was reported that all small businesses can expect to be audited much more than they have been. And so that's where we go. Because I got to tell you, if you're going to audit the very rich, they have attorneys, they have accountants. They're not going to get caught paying too much more, unless they're cheating. But they have legal loopholes, so they don't have to cheat. Unlike all of us who don't have these legal loopholes and then don't have attorneys and CPAs to back us. And so that's where they're going to turn their attention, in my opinion. Okay, so the Democrats aim to raise $400 billion in new revenue over the next decade. So that's only $40 billion a year. Now it sounds like a lot of money, but look at the budget; it's $5 trillion. So I mean, it's really a shot in the bucket. Again, $1 billion, $2 billion, $10 billion. All of a sudden, you start talking about real money. You start talking about $1 trillion, right? Anyway. And cracking down on the rich evader. See, they're always going to tell you they're only going to go after the rich, because otherwise nobody will back this. A plan that hinges on revived fear of audits among the wealthy. Not only among the wealthy. New framework that President Biden unveiled last week calls for $80 billion in additional Again, this was not unveiled last week. This was unveiled many months ago. They were talking about the $80 billion in additional. And if you've been watching this show, then you know this. This is not newly unveiled. Additional funding to IRS to hire more enforcement agents, modernize outdated technology, and invest in taxpayer services. The White House said the additional enforcement resources will be directed toward Americans with incomes above 400. They always tell us that. But the stricter IRS enforcement, the biggest revenue raiser in the latest White House proposal, relies on making sure the wealthy have the healthy dose of fear when it comes to the tax collection agency. Hiring agents, updating systems, and tackling complicated audit cases will take time, said I think he's the deputy treasurer, but will make the top sliver of income earners consider hiding their money to avoid hiding their money to avoid taxes. When you are focused on audits and people see the audits are happening, especially among people who are situated similar to them, you have better compliance, he said. When they see more cops on the beat looking at tax returns, what people will decide is that it's better to pay than to pay the penalty at the end. Pretty much that's true, and that people will. But again, I believe that most people on the higher end don't take that chance as it is. Money generated from the enhanced enforcement would be used to fund Biden's signature social spending plan, which allocates $1.75 trillion toward things like universal pre-K, expanded Medicaid, green energy tax credits, and one-year expansion of the boosted child tax credit. In fiscal year 2019, the IRS audited just 0.45% of individual tax returns, according to the Treasury, or 1 out of every 225 individual returns. That figure is down from 0.59% in 2018 and 1.11% in 2010. The data shows that out of more than 199 million tax returns in 2019, the IRS only examined 771,095 returns. That's a decline of 45% from the fiscal year 2015. Of course, last year nobody was there in the office, so everything was down on the IRS. So that's kind of not a fair assessment there. In all, the IRS collected about $57.5 billion in enforcement revenue in fiscal 2019, which ended in September 2019. That's below the $59 billion it raked in fiscal year 2018. The decline in audits is largely due to dwindling. This is where I have to disagree with this, because I've pointed it out here on this show many times that the decline in audits is largely due to dwindling funding and enforcement staff. The IRS has 20,000 fewer staff members than it did in 2010. And in 2010, right, they were at 10%. They were very low in the number of electronic returns they were processing compared to today. And its budget is roughly $11.4 billion, 20% less than it was in 2010 when adjusted for inflation, according to the Congressional Budget Office. About $81 trillion in federal taxes may be going unpaid each year because of errors, fraud, and lack of resources to adequately enforce collections, said the commissioner. That's up significantly from the last time the IRS formally published data on the so-called tax gap. At the time between 2011 and 2013, the agency reported an annual loss of roughly $441 billion. I think they do a tax gap analysis most every year, and it's usually it's between $300 billion and $600 billion, depending on what. And now you hear this $1 trillion figure. If the changes were implemented, the commissioner estimated that the IRS employment would grow to about 167,000 employees, compared to 81,000 in 2020. While the agency would have the necessary resources to invest in critical technology to improve the taxpayer experience and use additional information reporting to increase compliance in areas where we currently lack information. That goes back to the reporting. The new data will provide the IRS with a lens into otherwise opaque sources of income with historically lower levels of reporting accuracy, he told lawmakers. Now, here's something I've never really seen from a commissioner, former commissioner. This is from a former commissioner from the IRS. Biden's $80 billion proposal to fund the IRS is dramatically in excess of what the IRS needs, says former IRS commissioner. President Joe Biden says strengthening the Internal Revenue Service is going to require an approximately $80 billion investment over a decade, but that's way too rich a sum, according to former commissioner. I think its funding is drastically in excess of what the IRS needs and could probably effectively use. That's the really key. Could they even use the money? What are they going to do with it? It's going to sit there like they did with a lot of this stimulus money, still sitting there. But now it's a big slush fund for them. And that's what happened. Remember a couple of years ago when they had the big slush fund and they were making shorts, videos for the conventions while they're all off having vacations. That was right before the Lois Lerner debacle. He said now that on the outside looking in, he currently sees the federal specialty tax leader in accounting. He works for an accounting outfit. His remarks on Biden's vision of the IRS come during the Capitol Hill back and forth among Democrats on what's in, what's out, and what size of spending bill should be the aim of the strengthen the social safety net. The Build Back Better proposal calls for roughly $80 billion to bolster the IRS, and that includes almost $45 billion for enforcement. The Biden administration says the money would enable the IRS to beef up its ranks and improve how it uses technology to ensure corporations and people paying above $400,000 are paying their fair share. Again, there's that $400,000 fee. They just keep saying it. Then we'll just hope that it's true. Speaking on Monday, the opinion piece is arguing that while the IRS needs more money and more investment, but the agency can't soak it up that much cash. Last week, Biden unveiled the stripped-down $1.75 trillion version of the Build Back Better proposal, which keeps offerings like universal preschool school and temporary expended child tax credits, and other things like paid family leave. More taxes on the rich are still in Biden's proposal, but it's not rate hikes or taxes on unrealized capital gains. It's surtaxes for households with at least $10 million incomes. Meanwhile, the fate of the current $10,000 cap on state and local taxes is being debated. Now, again, they need more money, but they're gonna let that off because the states want it. So negotiations continue inside the party that cannot afford no votes. Manchin, a centrist Democrat, said Monday he's not backing the bill until he knows how it would impact the debt of our economy. But if a well-heeled taxpayer thinks this will come to nothing, they better bet again. And that's probably true. It's going to come to something. We all know that they're really pushing to get these. They want more money. They want to collect more money, more taxes. I always say, at what expense? At what cost to wring out every dollar that's out there? How many innocent people are going to be raked over the coals by the IRS and their collections efforts? Because I got to tell you, we're helping people in the collections, very difficult for people. Sometimes people have done nothing wrong, and audits are very. They take a lot of time for people, and it causes a lot of anxiety. I can tell you that. That just is a fact. And so, how much of that anxiety is worth the money that they're going to gather? I can argue that, but I just think it's something that we should all think about. But again, I think the funding for the IRS is. I've already said I think it's overblown. I have to agree with this gentleman that it's overblown. The money that the IRS collects now, given the technology that they use, is still in line with what they always had. Why they don't answer the phone? I think it's a ploy to get more money for the organization. Because if they don't answer the phone, then people complain, and people say, "Well, they need more money." Well, we just don't have the money to answer the phone. I don't buy that argument. I don't think it's really justified. My own opinion. But again, I think they're right also in that this is going to get passed. There's going to be some money for the IRS in this package. I would think the $80 billion is on the low end, but we shall see. So again, thanks for joining us here. Remember, if you're fighting the IRS, then you should get a copy of my book, Deal with Your IRS Problem Today. Go to freeirsbook.com, get yourself a copy, freeirsbook.com. Also going to ask you to like and subscribe to this content. Who else is telling you about the tax laws every day? I don't think there's anybody else out there telling you this, so I'm happy to do it. But I'm going to ask you to like and subscribe so we can get this content out to other people. Thanks so much for joining us here today. I appreciate you taking the time. We're going to be back tomorrow. Tomorrow, remember now, is Crypto Tuesday. Lots to talk about at crypto and other areas of blockchain technology. So join us, won't you?